Hey, I'm Amanda. I'm 27 years old and I've been through some shit. I talk about a lot of different stuff on my channel, but on this show, I really dive deep into who I used to be. This is Past Pages Unfolded, reviewing and reflecting on past diary entries. This show is pretty simple. Each episode we talk about a diary entry from my past and review it and reflect on it and see what I've learned. So let's look at the entry. This entry is from August 1st, 2017. So I've been out of the hospital for just over 2 weeks now, and it feels like much longer. I spend my days at home watching Netflix, mostly because I don't have any friends here and therefore no one to hang out with. I get that I need to learn how to just be by myself, but I can't help but feel awkward going out by myself. Like, I don't want to go to the beach alone, but I just might try today. I think about him sometimes, every now and then, naturally, but then I try to move on again. I'm hurt because his family hates me and blames me now, which doesn't seem fair. Yes, I made my own decisions, but I was the one who was roped into this. Right? I am very impressionable sometimes, especially when it comes to the people that I love. In those situations, as much as I want to have my own voice and stick up for myself, I just can't. I get scared. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, and I'm also afraid of bad reactions. I know that once it comes out, you can't take it back, and that absolutely terrifies me. So let's reflect on that entry. So at this time in my life, it was August of 2017, and my accident happened in July of 2017. So this was right after, and like I said, I'd been out of the hospital for a few weeks, and I was feeling a lot of sadness. I was feeling a lot of guilt. I was so confused about what had really happened and where I was being led in my life by God. I had just moved back to my mom's house, and I was trying to bounce back from being in a bad place and not thinking I was going to recover from the position that I had put myself in. If I had some advice for my past self, I would tell her that, this time when you're confused and trying to figure out what happened and who you are and how you feel about the situation is really the period when you will figure out yourself. Because I feel like I'm always trying to figure out who I am. And along with that comes figuring out, I guess, life and figuring out who you should be and who you want to be. I guess there's no should, but really who you want to be and who you will be. I feel bad that my past self doesn't have friends to hang out with because that had always been a big part of my life. And then this thing happened, and afterwards I felt like I was totally cut off from a lot of people. And that was just a really big difference for me because I'd always had someone, and I had chosen to be alone in the years before, chosen when I wanted to be alone. But at this point, I didn't want to be alone, and I didn't choose to be alone. So I think that's the difference. So the impact on the present, I think the fact that I stayed relatively open-minded and curious about my feelings and my emotions and the whole situation and really allowed myself to talk myself through it, I think that helped me more easily flow into trauma counseling a few years down the line and more easily talk to other people about what had happened and give people the full story and hopefully eventually come out on here and give the full story. At this time, I was learning how to be alone again. I was learning how to be myself again. I was learning how to live a life again. For the past 7 months, I had not lived a life. I had lived in some drug-induced haze, and now it was time for me to come back to reality, and I was freaking out, to say the least. There was a lot of drama around what happened, and I felt like I would never be able to come back from it, especially when it came to my family members. I felt embarrassed that they knew I had gotten myself involved in something like this. I don't really have a music of the time today because at this time, to be honest, I was not listening to music. I know it sounds like ridiculous, but I was too sad to listen to music. The most I did was watch Netflix because I needed something to throw on in the background while I numbed my brain and just didn't think about anything for a few months. But I really wasn't listening to a lot of music. I don't think I was trying to get back into the stuff I used to love because, like I said, for 7 months I was cut off from the world, kind of. So I was trying to get back into the shows that I liked and the music that I liked, but that was really hard. Also, because a lot of the music I liked had been present in this time in my life, and it was bringing back memories too. So I think that's another reason why I stopped listening to some of the songs that I had been listening to that summer. Finally, I just want to say a moment of gratitude for why this time in my life happened to me. I'm not going to go into why I'm grateful for the accident happening to me because that's a whole other can of worms, but I am going to say that I'm grateful that I was able to reflect on it, and I'm grateful that I was able to spend the time by myself, and I'm grateful that my mom was able to open up her home to me after the accident and just bring me in like it was no problem. Over the years, it's been really hard for me to be grateful for some of the stuff that's happened. It's been really hard for me to be grateful that some people hated me and be grateful that they did kick me out of their lives, because the people I'm talking about in this diary entry, the people who hated me and blamed me, they booted me out of their lives, rightfully so. And it was a good thing because I thought these people were people I could trust. And, the universe works in mysterious ways. And I think the whole situation at the end of the day was just God's way of saving me, kind of. And obviously, I'm going to get more into the accident as episodes go on, but I don't want to dive deep into it if it's not the right time for it. So I just wanted to dive deep into a little bit of the emotions I was experiencing afterwards and a little bit of the mindset I was in right after it happened. This has been one of the biggest things that has ever happened in my life, and it is the biggest trauma of my life. So obviously, it has a big impact on who I am and how I am as a person. But I think there's nothing wrong with talking about the accident and reflecting on it and trying to understand how I feel about it, not understand it itself, but understand how I feel about it, because that will bring me closure and that will help me move on. I think that's about it. I think I've said everything I need to say and expressed my points. I hope you enjoyed this. If you liked it, I'd love for you to give me a like and show your support. I'd also love to see some comments and maybe hear about what you think, or maybe hear about a time that you felt as low as I felt or as confused as I felt, if you can relate to any of the emotions that I was feeling at that time. And then I'd love for you to subscribe, but you don't have to, but it'd be awesome if you did. Thanks for watching. Bye.